Here we go. Preparing to live stream the webinar. Drum roll, please. And there we go. It says, oh no, it says that in Zoom. So there we go. Here it comes.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah, we're live. Just as we started, Luke walks off camera.
Grab the chimes. I had to make it official. There we go.
There we go. So this is the first ever Zoom call I've done on YouTube. So modern wonders, eh? Isn't it incredible what you can do these days? So what this is a live streamed Q&A for the Idea Explosion Challenge program. So we've got a new class going through, and I'm just going to introduce the attendees first. So hello, Assets, Adam, Almaz, Andrew, Anselm, Austin, Bart, Benoit, Christopher, Ed, Eric, Evan, Filippo, Francois, Jesse, Kevin, Magnus, Marco, Mihai, Mr. Rob, Sam, Simon, Subolx, and Zach. Hello, Zach. Zach is somebody who came to a live event at the end of last year, so I know Zach well. So great to have you all on here on probably what is your Saturday afternoon. On the video with me right now, I have Luke, who is at the bottom of the screen. He's bald with beard, and Ardash, who is top left of the screen with a big smile. Not that Luke doesn't have a big smile as well, but you know.
My face is close to the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I've got a face for radio. But anyway, so the let's just introduce, and Luke and Arash are the wonderful Make Music Your Life coaches who kind of help me with various different things, the communities, and particularly help me coach the people in the community with the Leap, kind of following up them in terms of accountability and stuff. But I invited them to come on, and they I'm very thankful to them because they gave up their, is it Saturday afternoon there at the moment? Yeah. So
Yep.
Ardash, why don't you introduce yourself and say a little bit about who you are and where you're at so that people know who.
Hi, everybody. My name is Arash. I go by Shammy D. I'm a DJ, artist, producer, writer, engineer. Like, you kind of got to do it all nowadays. I've been working with Mike consistently for the past, gosh, at this point, I think it's 4 years now. Yeah. And it's been an amazing ride, and I'm very excited to be here on the call with you all and go through this process. Is everybody here on the Leap?
No, this is an Idea Explosion Challenge.
That's right. I'm sorry, Idea Explosion Challenge. So
yeah.
I'm excited for you all to experience this, and here to help answer any questions you might have.
Fantastic. And Luke.
Yeah, my name is Luke. I am part of a group called Bells and Robes. You know, I've been touring and playing music now for, man, I've been playing piano for like 20 years. I started taking, you know, I think when was the first Start Now Finish Fast, 2013 or 2012?
That was my first ever, that was my first ever course, actually after the How to Focus course, but yeah.
Yeah, so I did Start Now Finish Fast way back in the day, and that really, you know, got me over a lot of my creative humps. And I've been with Mike doing all of his courses, I think, you know, the unique style generator, all that. And now I'm here. I've done my own Idea Explosion Challenge. I did 600 splurges in 2 months.
Yes.
So,
yeah. So both Luke and Arash were in my mastermind for extended periods of time. I think it was Luke when you first came in. I was like, right, what's a goal that's going to be, because I kind of knew Luke fairly well before you joined the mastermind, and I said, what's a goal that would be really, really motivating for you, you know, for you to do just to kick off this mastermind. And we'd been talking about Quincy Jones and how he chose the songs for Thriller by Michael Jackson, and he listened to 600 songs in order to come up with the was it 12 he recorded, and then 9 ended up being on the album. Again, quality coming from quantity. So and Luke said, "Oh yeah, I think that would be great." And like my eyes kind of widened. I was like, "Okay, great." And I checked to see if that was if you wanted to do it, and then you did it. What was it like doing 600 splurges?
Well, it was like 150 in 45 days, and then another 150 in 30 days, and then 300 in 15 days.
Right.
It was ridiculous. But you know, at the end of it, like it kind of became, it kind of gives you this freedom to like try to make that music you kind of want to make but don't really want to make, and then you find that out very quickly after you're doing like 20 splurges in a day that you just don't want to make drum and bass.
Yeah, who knew? No, I mean, I do find that when you start to, and by the way, for people who are doing the splurge challenge for the first time, I wouldn't recommend immediately going for like, I'm going to do 100, or, you know, it's definitely not 600 and not even 100 in the splurge challenge, like, because it's almost like you're biting off more than you can chew. Just go as fast as you possibly can. But there is a real clarifying aspect to simply pushing the speed button, the quickness button, which it clarifies lots of things about your process, and I thoroughly recommend it at some point. But at this stage, if you're doing it for the first time and you are simply focused on speed and just go as fast as you can. I mean,
yeah, doing like one a day is hugely beneficial.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Just I mean, that is the usual. You know, I'm doing 100 splurge challenge every quarter or thereabouts, and they are quite intense. I mean, Ardash, what have the benefit, because you know, because obviously you probably started music in the same way that most people start music, which wasn't via a splurge before the splurge. I mean, it kind of, we've been doing this so long now that it almost feels like there's never been anything else. But can you cast your mind back to what it was like before you started splurging? What music making was like before you started splurging?
Yeah, it was very laborious. I remember before I started getting on splurging, we were talking about a project that it was 5 songs, and it took me literally a year and a half to finish 5 songs, which, you know, looking back is kind of ridiculous, but it was a bunch of tweaking and figuring that out, replacing this part with that. And at a certain point, it doesn't really improve the track. And it just became a very ongoing battle with that. And it would take me, you know, I would work on a track for 1 hour and, oh, well, I don't like it. It wasn't perfect. And dang, so mentally, every track was very precious. And that's not creatively, when everything is precious, I've discovered that it doesn't bring progress creatively for me.
No. And I mean, I don't think it does for anyone. I was reading a book, and by the way, folks, on the, actually in the webinar, if you want to ask a question, please put your hand up in, there's a thing. Do you know where it is? I've never known, because I've never actually been on a Zoom call where I'm not in the front. So do you know how to put your hand up in the yeah, there we go. Okay, people start to put their hands up. Yeah, okay. So I'll keep on to, oh, hang on, they were just testing it. Now they're putting their hands down again. Come on, don't be shy. And also, you don't need to use your video. You don't need to use your video if you don't want to, but we'll just use your voice. So if you want to ask a question, just put your hand up. If not, we'll just keep talking. Yeah. So
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Christopher just said he was talking. He was doing 1 splurge a day, and then he said, I only did 17 bars. And I just wanted to say, you know, like 17 bars is definitely a splurge. Like you would agree, right? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, anything's a splurge. Like 1 bar is a splurge.
Yeah, I mean, like a sound is a splurge, and the magic comes when you allow that to be the truth. I think that it can be anything.
What a splurge actually is what you do when you're splurging. And a splurge ends when you notice yourself stopping splurging. That's really the most kind of the clearest sort of definition of a splurge. It's not a whole song. It's not half a song. It's not like it's not one bar, it's not one beat, it's just the act of splurging is being in a certain state of creation, which is that you are just creating without any editing whatsoever. Yeah. Now I know that sometimes feels like it's impossible, and sometimes it is impossible, but that is the essential direction. But coming back to what Arnash was saying about everything being precious and that not being a beneficial thing for your creative process, I was writing I was reading a book called How to Write Funny, because I look at all kinds of different areas of sort of interest. Like I read a book about the container shipping industry recently because I just find it very useful to go. So yeah, it's really good. It's like really interesting how it happened. Anyway, but I find it really useful. So some about kind of quantum physics and about marketing and about psychology and just everything. I try and read as widely as possible, and because it's amazing the different patterns you can find. So I was reading a book about called How to Write Funny, and it was, I mean, this guy who's the guy that started The Onion, and he it was literally exactly the same. He was like that. Here's how you start writing, and he just described a splurge. And I was like, and I didn't. I mean, it was just last week I read it, so I've been teaching people to splurge for years now. And I was like, well, there you go. Watch the Timberland masterclass. The first video on the Timberland masterclass, splurging. Like pure, like what he's doing there is he's splurging. Watch the Dead Mouse masterclass, where he's in front of the computer doing the thing. Again, doing his thing with the, what he's doing all on a keyboard, on a computer keyboard. Again, splurging. It is a thing that a lot of people kind of come to after a lot of experience. Sorry, what were you going to say, Luke?
So, have you ever watched improv comedy?
Yes.
There's basically a rule that it's like, you never say no to what someone says. You say yes and I mean, that's essentially what a splurge is. Like when you put something down, like if you put a bass line, you say yes to the bass line, and then you add on, a drum loop, and then you keep saying yes and to the ideas as they come. And that's how, and when you watch like skilled improvisers, it's like the people that really can just like let go and go in the moment, man, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, so we did have a question, but now Chris seems to have disappeared. Did you want to ask a question, Chris? No, maybe not. So here we go. He's put his hand up again. So what I'm going to do, Chris, is I'm going to allow you to talk, okay, and then you have to unmute yourself. I don't want to unmute you because just in case there's. So I think you need to click unmute somewhere. There we go. Hello, Chris. Hello. Oh dear. Are the audio settings correct? Hello. Okay. What I'm going to do, Chris, is I'm going to move on to Simon. Okay. And you check your audio settings. So I've muted you, and I'm going to move on to Simon. Okay, Simon, I'm going to allow you to talk. And now unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
Right.
Hi, Simon. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I had a question. I think I started trying to do a splurge using my cork drum machine, and it's sort of in the back of my mind. I'm thinking it's quite important for me for the final result to be sort of perfectly in time. So I started just hitting some of the pads and making a beat that way. But I was thinking if I have to go back and make that perfectly in time, it might be a bit challenging. So then I sort of kind of wanted to get something sequenced, I guess, and then play with the some of the settings like the attack and that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess it's just would it be an idea to like record the MIDI or something and the audio as well? And
okay, yeah. So
later.
Yeah. So first, let me ask you a few like boring technical questions. So when you say your core drum machine, can you, is it a drum machine with a sequencer in it, or are you recording the audio of the drum machine into a DAW?
It has a sequencer in it, but also
Yep.
I would be happy to do the sequencing in the DAW. I don't really mind which way. So yeah,
Okay.
I guess you're right. One way could be to program a rhythm using the buttons in the actual drum machine, and then let that run, and then splurge on the settings and sort of add.
Yeah, I mean, we like choose something that you want to do, yeah, and then we can then so which do you want to, which would you rather do? Would you rather would you rather sequence in the drum machine, or would you rather do it another way?
I think it's sort of hard to sequence as it's going along, I guess. Yeah, so I feel like
It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter which you do. I mean, like it's no harder to kind of sequence a pattern in a drum machine once you know what you're doing than it is to sequence it another way. It's just different. So, I mean, if you're sequencing if you're sequencing the drum machine, then there's no issue because that will be in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, presumably anyway.
Computer, but I'll be able to go and sort that out on day 13 or whatever. But
well, I mean, you can sync. You probably would want to sync it to MIDI clock or something if that was the case.
Yeah, maybe that would be the thing to do, is to make that the sort of master. So spend a bit of time setting that up first, and then kind of get a sort of set up before doing the splurge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's always what you have to do. Like you create the conditions where you can splurge, because splurging definitely isn't trying to bang your head against the brick wall of trying to get your drum machine sequence. Oh man, Monday, this splurging just isn't working.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I kind of like jumped into it without deciding like the parameters first, you know.
Exactly. So it's brilliant. It's a brilliant insight there, because you want to always in life generally create the conditions where the thing that you are trying to do just automatically happens, if you like.
Yeah. So I guess like sequencing on the fly might be fine, but yeah, I guess I'd have to decide that's what I'm going to do and then focus on that. And then
exactly. Yeah, set that up. So for instance, yesterday I had a very frustrating 2 hours, and I'm gonna let the other coaches come in. I'm not going to hog all of the answers, but just I had a very frustrating few hours yesterday afternoon, because on my live stream in the morning, somebody said, "Oh, finally, somebody who uses Logic," and it just kind of got me thinking, because I was like, maybe because I don't only use your Logic, I use Ableton too, or have used Ableton too, and I haven't done it for absolutely ages. And I was like, I wonder if using Ableton on a live stream would have a difference in the number of people who end up on the live stream. And I just thought that would be very, you never know. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. So I thought that would be a good thing to test. And also I thought it would be interesting and useful to a lot of people who are doing the Idea Explosion Challenge. Because there was another guy, Douglas, who was kind of basically relatively a beginner, as he said, you know, and I don't want to insult him. Maybe he wasn't, but with the way he was talking, he seemed to he was learning a DAW, and I thought it would be useful, because I haven't used Ableton for a few years. It would be actually useful for me to do this Idea Explosion Challenge using Ableton instead of Logic, which I'm totally not comfortable with. So basically, I spent a few hours yesterday afternoon banging my head against, what, this just ridiculous, it doesn't work, you know, like that kind of thing, and basically got it set up. But I knew I wasn't splurging. I mean, I was playing parts in order to see if what I was doing was working, but I wasn't splurging. I was setting Ableton up. Does that make sense, Simon?
It's interesting you should say that, because I've been using Pro Tools a long time, but it's quite expensive to upgrade, and I'm finding some of my plugins kind of aren't working. Like the new plugins don't work with it anymore. So
really,
I actually sort of started going through the process of starting to use Ableton, but then I started doing the template, you know, with the drums, the bass, and then the keyboard and stuff. But then I was struggling in Ableton. So I've gone back to sort of doing that template in Pro Tools, because I know I was going to run out of time otherwise, you know. But
no, totally. I mean, I think one thing I would say is, if you can, try to avoid. I mean, I'm doing something different because I'm used to splurging.
Yeah,
But
sure.
yeah, if you're not used to splurging, if you're learning splurging for the first time, then you want to be lowering the bar. So don't do what I'm doing and use something that you're not familiar with. It's like it's better to use something you're familiar with, because then you'll just be able to focus on splurging rather than,
my day.
isn't this button working? Yeah.
I spent the whole day just trying to work out how to set the MIDI from my chord to
I know. I wish there was just one DAW to rule them all, but there isn't. So Luke or Arash, did you have anything to say about
well, I had an idea for you, and you could feel free to shoot this down if you don't like it. But one thing I've done with my friends and people that I'm coaching that is kind of helped them, I call it the puppet master splurge. And it's basically like you have someone else telling you what to do on the splurge. So it's like, I would be like, make a groovy bass line, and then you would have to make a groovy bass line and record it. But it ends up being interesting because you have this like communication where, like, I did this with a DJ friend who had never produced before, and he would just tell me what to do, and then I would try to do it, and we'd try to communicate.
Right.
I just had that idea.
Collaborative way.
Yeah, it's like a collaborative thing, but then you have one person who's kind of like directing it, but you end up laughing because you're like, make it a little more I don't know, funky or groovy or weird.
Cool.
Yes, you might go away and do that, and then it doesn't end up being quite what they were thinking.
That's where the magic comes in. And actually, somebody in the chat had said, I think, brought up a question about like one thing that I'm missing right now because of, or I think it was in the chat, but someone said like, because of the virus and, you know, social distancing, I'm missing connection and collaborating with people. Or no, wait, that was in the Q&A. And so maybe this can touch on that. Like, that can be a way to collab with somebody digitally. Like, hey, what idea do you have? Give me a funky bass line. All right, I'm gonna cook up that bass line and send you the stem. And then cool, I got the stem, do this. Like, that could be a fun way to go back and forth. Sam, you had asked the question, and that just sparked a connection after Luke had said that.
Yeah, there is also another, there's also an app called Endless, which is by, I can't remember his name now. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Great guy, anyway. What's he called? Tim Exile. There you go. Yeah. So he's started this collaboration app where you actually play music literally with people via an app. And I haven't had time to delve into it, but I am in there and I'm kind of subscribed and everything. I think they're going to create. They're doing a Kickstarter or something, or an Indiegogo or something. I don't know. Anyway, a crowdfunding thing for actually creating the VST version of the plugin. But they actually do battles on YouTube. So that's, I mean, it's not like making music in the way, you know, it's not the same as making music in Logic or anything. It's more of it's almost like there isn't really a defined result that you're looking for. It's more of a game that you're playing, a musical game that you're playing. I guess I don't want to misspeak here, but that's another thing that people are doing. And I think that's super exciting as well, because it's more with that one, it's more about performance than production. Which is, I've got to turn it to gallery view. There we go. So it's more about performance than production. Sorry, I'm getting used to having to change to speaker and gallery view in the thing so that people can see who's talking. So yeah. So
I guess that's another way. The puppet way is a good way to kind of narrow down what the parameters are for the splurge, because it sort of narrows down what you're trying to achieve. And then, you can sort of focus on one thing and then sort of go wild, but not do too much at once.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of, so the splurges, you'll see as you go through the program that there are lots of different kinds of splurges. There are 5 in the program. So the one that you're doing at the moment, the first one is just the basic 4 rules. Yeah, 0 focus on quality, 100% focus on speed, record every result, and don't listen until the end of the challenge. Those are the kind of 4 core rules of the splurge. That last one is like, don't listen for 7 days when you're out of the challenge. But then progressively through the challenge, I kind of add different rules to those core rules, and there are actually an infinite number of splurges. I'm creating them all the time for clients and you know, in the various different programs that I do, where you actually add additional rules onto the top. So for instance, an example would be you're only allowed to use one plugin, or you're only allowed to use one sound, or I don't know, you've got to take this sound from over here, or you have to work in this tempo but with these sounds. I mean, there's just literally an infinite number of additional rules you can place upon yourself, which kind of train you in lots of different ways. So but anyway, don't worry about that for now. Simon, get your drum machine synced up, and yeah, and then you can kind of splurge freely. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Nice one, Simon. So let's move on to, so we've also answered Sam's question. Would you consider that answer? Did you have any ideas about collaborating, any additional ideas about collaborating live, Luke, or Arash already spoke?
What was the question?
Sorry. One of the things I'm really missing due to COVID is contact with musical collaborators. Have you found any ways that allow you to collaborate with people online?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like Splice, and then, I mean, one of the things I've been doing, I have roommates and we have collaborators with our roommates. And we had this, I mean, I'll just tell you what I've done. And I don't know, I don't really have it like the rule of what it is we're doing. But we basically just kind of like picked an idea, and we called it neon charcuterie.
You've got a big charcuterie thing going on in that house, haven't you?
Yeah, it's well, we basically on Saturday we just eat charcuterie, drink mimosas, and then there's like 3 beat making stations that are essentially just splurging, and 2 of the people in the house are rappers, and 2 of the people are rappers / singers, and then 2 of the people are producers. And basically,
there's another guy who's a vegetarian, but he just sits in another room.
Yeah, no, he moved out. He's just done. But we just kind of, what we've been, the funny thing is we've been collaborating with people outside of the house, but it was kind of like, we had this theme, I guess you could say. And we were just like, we're going to make a lot of tracks according to this theme, which is basically like 80s music meets like extravagant hip hop. And when you have that kind of theme that you're going into with like a group of people, it allows everybody to kind of splurge. And then when you send something to someone, you can kind of like be like, what we're going for here. And I know it's odd to say is neon charcuterie. But I mean, I mean, honestly, like, I think some of the tracks we made are some of my favorite tracks I've ever been a part of. And like, it's just been incredibly fun. And we just pick a day where we're going to take a few hours and do that. So, I mean, if you do know other people that make music, maybe you could be like, hey, you know, I have this idea, like, do you want to get on Zoom and like, just come talk about it. And then, you know, we could just write like 15 or 20 tracks, no concern for quality, in this style. Because that's essentially what we did is do that. And, you know, I'm still kind of thinking about how I would explain this to someone. I mean, Mike, what, after I say that, what do you think of that? Is that like
oh yeah, no, I think, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, one of the, you know, because I have the automatic music machine, and one of the things that's on my card of things to develop is the version of the machine which is basically one massive collaboration tool, right? Because we all have, you know, when you make, so one of the paradigm shifts, if you like, if I want to kind of overstate it and like hype it up, but one of the paradigm shifts that you have is that you realize that you can't finish or work on ever again the majority of ideas that you're creating. You won't ever do that, which is absolutely fine. It's not a waste of time. It's, in fact, it's exactly the opposite. It's one of the best things that you can do, is to create a bunch of ideas. And even the ideas that you don't use are not wasted, because they have gone into your, I don't know, their practice, and they've had their purpose in lots of different ways. Because it's not just about the result. Yeah. but one of the results of that is there are a lot of ideas in there that maybe aren't right for you, but may well be right for someone else. And it would be super interesting to have a kind of additional collaboration tool where essentially the ideas that you wanted to, you just send to the interplanetary music machine, should I say, which is also the name of my label, the interplanetary music machine, and then that gets put into a kind of collaboration system. So that is something. So, but we're kind of going off a bit into the realm of kind of future fantasy. But that is certainly something that I've been thinking about, because it is interesting how sometimes certain ideas aren't right for you, but they are right for other people, if you like.
Yeah, and so you mentioned like sending them off. So you have like your Trello board, and one thing you can do is like with a card, you can move it to another board.
Yeah, let's just, because I think some people aren't going to know what we're talking about here. So let me just share the screen so that I can show the actual automatic music machine, of which splurging is the first part. So hang on a minute. Ooh. Sorry, I've got so many windows open doing this. It's absolutely absurd. Hang on. All right. So this, folks, is the automatic music machine. And as you're in the Idea Explosion Challenge program, you're not going to get this part, because this is really just the tracking system that we use. Trello is what we use to track the various different pieces of music. But you are going to get the system at the end, of a basic version of the system, and it's quite involved. The full thing is quite involved, but you're going to get a basic version. So you'll get this. But this is essentially Trello, which is where we track all of the music we're making. Because one of the things you will find when you're making a lot of quality, it gets very, very overwhelming fast. So you need a way of tracking it. So here are all of the splurges I've done since coming back to making music. So here you can see, I don't know, there's probably getting on for about 1,000 or something. I've never done a 600 splurge challenge like Luke. So, and then they go through the system, and we do different things. So this is my splurge folder essentially. Then here is the in progress stuff: discover, draft, and done. Then it gets to release, and then it's released essentially. So continue, Luke. I just wanted to make sure that people knew what we were talking about with Trello. So this is what we're talking about here with Trello.
Yeah, what I was going to say. So I've got like my main project is the Bells and Robes project, and then I have like a few people I like frequently collaborate with. So when I get something that is like ready to be shared, you can just move a card to a different board. So I kind of have, these people aren't, in necessarily the Mike Monday ecosystem. But I have like, just like basic things, and I'll be like, hey, go to the Trello board and listen to this. And then with Splice, you can include like a link to a Splice project. And then there's one guy that I collaborate with a lot. And basically I've sent things on, like, we have a Trello board that's like specifically for like collaborating with him. And it's really just like 2 columns. It's like working on, and like, maybe this could work. And I'll just move it to that board and tell him like, go listen to this. And sometimes he likes it and sometimes he hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I've been missing a lot in my life is collaborating with people. I had a few experiences, which I won't go into now, where things went horribly wrong, and kind of I got scarred by it. And I took the wrong lesson out of those experiences. And I think musical collaboration is where there can be some real magic. I mean, it totally blows my mind that there are certain bands out there who've literally been in the same band all their life. I mean, I tell you what, like Little Dragon are amazing. They're one of my favorite bands, and they live in the same house. And they're not like 20 years old. or something, like, where you do tend to live in the same house with lots of people, or 30 years old, they're sort of, and I think they even have family. I think they are kind of almost like a cottage, and they work and live in the same house. It's just absolutely amazing to me, because maybe there's just something wrong with me. Maybe I'm just really annoying to live with or something, but yeah. Anyway, we'll get on with some more questions. So let's go. I think Christopher may well have sorted out his mic. Are you there, Chris?
Hello.
Hello. Oh, hang on. We've got muted again. So I'll just now unmute you. I think you have to unmute yourself. I think you muted yourself when you were unmuted. There we go.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can. Well done. You're on.
Hi all. Nice to see you all.
Great.
What it is, I've constantly have ideas running through my head. With this splurge, I'm constantly looking. I don't want to switch off. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I know you say you don't listen to your track at the end, you don't have to splurge, but it's almost automatic, and I don't know how I'll go about switching off.
So what's one thing I'm unclear on is, how does not listening to your track equal switching off? No, sorry, yeah, how does not, yeah, so that was right. I got it the right way around. Sorry, let me just say again, how does not listening to your track equal not switching off?
Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Once I've actually created a track and not finish the track, but finish the splurge, and you say at the end, export it and finish it, and then don't listen to it for 11 days. I can't seem to switch off. I feel like I want to carry on with that splurge.
We want to carry on with that splurge in that session?
Yes.
Well, then carry on with the splurge. That would probably be.
I thought you said, at the end of it, because you've only got a 30-minute time limit.
Yeah. So the 30-minute time limit, right? So for the first thing to say is the 30-minute time limit is there in order to get the quality, the quantity up. Yeah. So if at the end of the idea explosion challenge, you had 23 ideas. Why did I choose 23? That was a really weird number. Anyway, so if at the end of the idea explosion challenge you had 23 ideas in one version of it, and then in another you had 11. Yeah. What would be likely to be the case is that you would actually have a much higher quality track in the 23 version. Yeah, a much higher quality idea. If you kind of increase that to like 50, you probably find that that was even more the case. Yeah. So that's the reason for that that rule. And the other thing is that if you allow yourself just to continue, I mean, I think after half an hour, you are much less likely to be actually splurging. I mean, what do you find, Luke? Do you find that you're
still splurging after half an hour?
Yeah. I mean, it is possible. I mean, I've splurged an entire track out, but like in general, the further you get into the track, the more the editor starts to come in, right?
Yeah, I would say rarely am I think I've done it a few times. I think when you first introduced the splurge back in Make an Album with Mike,
so this was in 2016, I think.
Yeah, I think I interpreted that as finishing entire tracks. And there were a few where I think I tried to do that, but I mean, for the most part, like after 30 minutes, you kind of start to get, you almost, the only time I've been able to go further is if my splurge rules are really defined, almost have you ever talked about splurging within like a prearranged arrangement?
Yes, I've talked about that a few times. There are specific splurges that have that. So there's a hero splurge, and there's a theme and variation splurge, and there's a So that does. There are versions of it that do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only time I've ever been able to go more than 30 minutes was when I did that, and just kind of got lucky, and not many times at all. But like, I feel like most of my splurges now are like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Arash?
Yeah, I find that if I start a splurge and let's say I hit 10, 15 minutes and I'm excited about it, at that point in the game, because we've been doing it for as long as we have, then at that point I'm progressing it into like building out the track, and then editor starts coming into play, and etc. But in general, I'm like you, Luke, where like 10, 15 minutes, idea in, idea out, I'm on to the next. And parameters, the idea of parameters are really important when it comes to splurging, I find, because if it's open and you can do whatever you want, the mind actually freaks out. I know that's like my experience when it's very open-ended. And so if there are these parameters like, all right, I have these 4 elements that I have to use and I have to do it in 10 minutes, go. Now I know exactly what I have to deliver on in the specified amount of time. So it's actually really freeing in that respect, because
100%.
I know what to work within. So as I condense and keep it to a smaller amount of time with whatever specific parameters I'm doing, if it's 4 elements, if it's like an A-B kind of splurge, give me an A section, give me a B section, I'm golden. But anything after that, like editor starts to come in and it just turns into something else, which moves it away from the splurge. So that doesn't happen too often.
So let me ask you, Chris.
Progressive house, progressive house, progressive trance, by the likes of influences like Armin van Buuren, Eurosonic, those sort of guys. And it's hard to maybe go to another genre because I'm so used to making that sort of music. And when I'm doing splurges, this is what I've just joined. I'm in that genre. Can I switch from that, or would you recommend not?
Yeah, you could the ideal thing to do is just do whatever comes out.
I think it's. Oh wait, go ahead.
No, go.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, if you feel like making a country song that day, make a country song for sure. Like even if you're like let that, because there's sometimes like some element of a genre that, I mean, I've found for sure, like, exploring like jazz or classical or whatever, like, you'll find these little nuggets of like gold that exist in another genre that your genre has been lacking. And then that's how you.
Yeah, I mean, what is a genre? Where did the genre come from? A genre didn't like land on it. It wasn't like delivered to us by Moses, on a tablet of stone. Oh, here is progressive house, and here are the rules. I mean, to be honest, in terms of progressive, and I know this for a fact because I was there at the start of Progressive House, and I was one of the people who was doing it at the very beginning, one of the first ever Sasha compilation. Actually, I don't know whether it was the first, but it was the first ever compilation with multiple DJs. That was right. And there was Carl Cox, there was Paul Oakenfold, there was Pete Tong, and there was Sasha. It was called the Essential Selection. And Carl Cox, Paul Oakenfold, and Pete Tong all had like 20 tracks on their mix. Sasha had 4, right? Sasha's like mixing, like, just the typical Sasha way. So this was the very start of Progressive House in the early mid-90s, something like that. No, it was the mid-90s, that's right. And one of those 4 tracks was Beat Foundation, which was what I was in. And so I was there at the beginning of Progressive House. So I know where it came from, and it came from people reacting against what was going on at the time and bringing something else into what was going on already. Yeah. So they were bringing what we were doing. Yeah. I should say we, because it was we. What we were doing we were bringing in music, it was like kind of classical influences you know, actual music, actual notes and chords, and it not just being about kind of samples and snare drum rolls and drops and things like that. It was much more of a, what we were trying to do was bring a kind of a more musical and emotional thing from other styles of music. So, you know, Chris, these genres aren't set, and it's dangerous to think that they are, because you just end up sounding like a bad version of someone else, you know. So
I've noticed with Avicii, he had something which I found very interesting. He did a record called, he had a bit of country in, I can't remember what it was called.
Wake Me Up.
That's it, yeah, Wake Me Up.
That was literally when you said progressive house, that was the first thing. And then you asked about genres. I was like, oh, Avicii did that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And can I share, like, I've been DJing for over, I don't know, 21, 22 years at this point, and I'm an open format DJ. So I play all kinds of music, which influences my splurges. One day I'll come to Ableton and I'll be like, I feel like making house today. I feel like, or next time I feel like making R&B today. So to Christopher, I don't want you to, like, don't worry about it. Go with what you feel, because that's where the magic happens. If you try to like stick what Mike was saying, like if you try to stick into one thing the whole time, it actually starts becoming detrimental to your creative process.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I mean, in terms of just coming back to the initial question, because I think we did answer it in a way. We gave you reasons to let go, if you like, to not listen. Yeah, but we didn't tell you how to do that. So what I would do, Chris, I mean, let me just ask you, how many thoughts and feelings and urges do you have every day that you do not act upon?
Oh, there's quite a few, to be fair.
Yeah, and if you did act upon them, if you're anything like me, you would end up in prison probably.
Yeah.
right. So you are already an expert at not acting upon thoughts, feelings, and urges. You already know how to do that. You do it more often than you don't. Correct? Yeah. That's just this is just one of those. Trust us, trust the process. It is so worth not listening to those pieces of music, and it's definitely worth stopping the splurge and increasing the quality. Just treat it as an experiment over the next 10 days and think, you know, do you know what? If this doesn't yield what I'm hoping for, I can always go back to what I was doing before. You haven't lost anything. You'll have a bunch of ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
No worries. Okay, fantastic. Jesse, I'm going to allow you to talk. You have to click unmute.
Hello?
There we go. Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. I had a question. But it's not so much about the splurging, which I'm doing right now. But I wanted to ask it anyway. Often when I'm about to finish something, I just freak out a bit, and then all of a sudden I start hating it, and I get like a bit depressed or something. And I was wondering if you can tell something about this, or I don't know.
So you're saying that when you get towards the end of the process, you start disliking what it is you're doing.
Yeah, I get very stressed about it, and then
So what is it at the end of so what is approaching as you get to the end of the process of making a piece of music? What is the one thing that is getting closer and closer, that's about to happen when you finish a piece of music?
I guess releasing it, or
right,
letting other people hear it, or
right, letting other people hear it. What does that mean when other people hear it? What does that mean? What are they going to do? What are they going to do when they hear it?
I judge it or something.
Right. So they're going to judge it. So in other words, as you reach the end of the creative process, you are fast approaching this judgment of other people point. Now, so you are certain that that judgment is about to happen? How much do you know of what they are actually going to say about the music that you are finishing? Like how certain are you that they're going to like it?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Exactly. So you're very uncertain of what that judgment will be.
Yeah.
So we've got this perfect storm for the human mind,
Yeah.
which is the one thing we can be certain of is that there will be judgment. But but what we can be 100% uncertain of is what that judgment will be. Yeah, and certainty and uncertainty are huge to the human mind. I mean, it's kind of like a biological imperative. The brain has been, creating, like trying to find certainty in our worlds in order to allow us to survive. Yeah,
right.
And remove uncertainty. So we've got this perfect storm: certainty of something that we are uncertain of. Now, social judgment as well, just to add to this, social judgment for our caveman brains, because essentially our brains are pretty unchanged since the days when we were roaming the plains of the Serengeti or wherever we were. Yeah, so to our caveman brains who lived in tribes, rejection by the tribe meant death. Yeah, so when those people who do things like this, I don't know who they are, but when they do brain scans of people who are being socially judged, apparently it kind of lights up in the same place as when people are scared of death. Okay, so that's the level of fear we're talking about. Okay, so in this situation where we are certain to be judged and we don't know what that judgment will be, and it's very similar to the fear of death, does that now explain what's happening at the end of the process?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
But what do you do about it?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. So the first thing to say is that a feeling and a thought is a signal. Yeah. Yeah. A feeling and then the thought that comes from the feeling, or the other way around. It's a signal. Yeah. And at the moment, the signal is, I mean, what are you taking from that doubt that is coming at the end of the process? What is that making you do? How are you responding? Right.
Quitting.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a signal coming in from this doubt, and it's telling you stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's rubbish. Yeah. But now I've explained to you why this is happening in your mind, what it is. Yeah. What would be a more beneficial signal? What would be a more useful signal? What would be a more logical, rational response to that signal?
Yeah, I guess thinking the feeling is normal, so it's just normal part of it. So I should just go on because it's a part of it. I don't know.
Doubt is a signal you're about to finish.
Okay.
That's all it is. So if it's a signal you're about to finish, what is the rational action to take?
Finish it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So
Cool.
so let me just pass it over to Arash. So what, like, you've definitely experienced this, because when you came into the mastermind, you've been working on this 5-track song. And by the way, Arash actually writes songs and sings, and so he's a songwriter. So it was his voice and everything else. Sorry?
You were doing one song a week on YouTube, right?
I was.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That was after after the 5-track. Yeah. So you've definitely. Yeah. So you. It was amazing.
Tell me about it.
So in terms of the. Yeah. What Jesse was talking about, like what do you think? How do you deal with the like doubt that grows towards the end of the process?
I just accept that maybe people will like it, maybe people will hate it. I think it gets to a point where if I continue working on it, it doesn't improve the quality of the track anymore, or any less. It's like diminishing returns at a certain point. So at that, I can just cut it and go. And it took a while to get there, because even after we started with the mastermind, I was still working on it. It took a while to get out of that. So at this point, if I get to a place where it's like doubt or uncertain, I either put it out or and get on to the next one, or I just leave it alone and go on to the next one.
So there was a little technique that I developed with myself in order to get things out of which I was massively doubtful and uncertain. I used to say, okay, I'm going to put this out, and I'm going to send this off, whatever, and I am going to use the embarrassment I feel, as the fire to light my next tune. I was like, right, I'm going to show them with this next tune. Like I'm going to make up for it, because the thing is, you are really only as good as your last track. Yeah, that is really how to think about it. So I'd be like, well, I can make this into history. Yeah, I can make this complete disaster into history by making the next one, great. Yeah, or making enough to make the next one great. Back then, I wasn't using the splurge methodology, so obviously I didn't know everything I was talking about now. But that was essentially, I used to use it as motivation to move on to the next one. I was like, right, done, next, done, next. I mean, if you scroll through virtually any, and I'm talking about the legendary ones that have been around for years, if you just scroll randomly through their Spotify profile, even people who you are big fans of, and just stop randomly somewhere and just press play on whatever track comes up or song comes up, you're fairly likely to hit upon something that you don't know, and B, maybe isn't so good.
Garbage.
Yeah, and you're like, hang on a minute, I didn't realize. I mean, that's not that won't always happen, but there is for the people who are truly great, actually they do have an enormous amount of work that isn't as great as the stuff they're remembered for. So that's the other thing to bear in mind.
Mike,
anyway, let's move on. Yeah.
Have you heard of there's this composer, Mozart?
Yeah, I think I may well have heard of it.
Yeah, I just thought about, there was one call we had, it was like a year ago or maybe 2 years, but they were talking about, I had a Mozart CD and I was reading the pamphlet, and it was like, most of what Mozart did before his 400th piece was forgettable.
Yeah, no, it really was. No, yeah, it really was. I mean, and somebody did that graph where they showed the greatest classical composers, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, kind of universally regarded as the greatest.
In that order, that was a bold claim.
Yeah. I would actually put Mozart's my favorite. I don't know whether he's the greatest, but anyway. But they startlingly were way above in terms of output, way above any of the others. And I don't know whether that's other than violin, but I don't know whether that was correlation or causation. But it is an interesting, thing to bear in mind. Anyway, so let's move on, because we get through a few questions. We might not be able to get through them all, so I don't want us to go on forever. And also, Arnash and Luke, if you need to leave at any point because you're taking your kind of Saturday afternoon, then please just do that. That's no problem at all. So Zabolks.
Hello, hi Mike.
Hi, I'm not sure if can you tell me how to say your name properly?
Because
you often, sorry, could you repeat that?
Splurge.
Shabolsh. Okay, there we go. I will try. I will attempt when you come on the live streams in future to remember that and say it properly. I apologize profusely.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you.
For murdering your name. I have an extremely long and complicated surname, which is why I call myself Monday. So I'm well used to it. But anyway, what's your question?
Okay, so I did the 11-day idea challenge before, and I created a few splurges for myself. And my question is that, would you recommend doing different splurges a day, like 4 or 3 different kinds, and save them accordingly, or just do one type and just do that for that day?
When you say different kinds, what exactly do you mean?
Okay, so it's not a basic splurge, but let's say I created some challenges for myself. For example, for 5 minutes, I play with a very good sounding band, which I like, and I just improvise, and then save that as an audio, and later on listen it back and write down a piece of paper the time periods where I like what I hear. So later on I can move on with this as an idea. So if I do like that every day, but also do like different kind of splurges as well, would it be confusing to do a lot of different types of splurges, or just do one?
No, do lots of different types of splurges. This is literally about removing thought from this area of the process, really. I mean, one thing that you did say that I just want to check, don't listen too soon. Yeah, just make sure you're not listening too soon.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Or 7
But
days at least.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's absolutely fine to be doing. I mean, I'm doing. At the moment, I am kind of zeroing in on sound, so I'm using a lot of the same things. But in terms of, for instance, the tempo that I'm doing, I'm all over the place, and I wouldn't necessarily limit myself, and I haven't in the past. I mean, when I first came back to making music, I was doing splurges in all, lots of different ways and lots of different styles and everything else. So I don't think there's any downside to that. Yeah, the only danger might be that it will get overwhelming. But if you used a kind of a system where you've got the different kind of buckets, like the automatic music machine, then I think you'll be fine. I don't think there is a downside there.
All right. And
Okay.
one more quick question.
Yeah.
I tried and finished one of my splurges, and I'm now creating a bit more like a production template when I have different stems for the kick drum and for the bass. And what I found is if I have this kind of template, when I start a splurge, then it's easier later to finish the splurge into a complete song. So would you recommend to have like a more difficult template, but just like turn off that parts which I don't need for the splurge, but it's already there. So later on, I don't have to add again like sidechain compression or all this kind of.
No, absolutely. So the reason, for instance, at the start of the Idea Explosion Challenge program, is that a lot of people probably aren't used to stopping themselves from doing things. Yeah. so they're not used to kind of stopping. Sort of, if something's available, it will just create this endless options thing. Yeah. In their head, and what the point of actually just choosing like the 5 players is that it doesn't allow you to do anything else. It's just you're creating the conditions where you don't have to stop yourself, which gives you kind of more mental processing just to create. But if you're kind of further down the line and you have the ability not to try use the other stuff, then I don't think there's a downside. I mean, now I'm talking it through, there could be a slight downside, because actually the what's it called, the stopping yourself from doing something even if you're not aware of it. So a really good example, say you're on a phone and you've got all your apps and they all have these little red numbers on there. Yeah, I actually turn off all of those red numbers, all of them, because they're little. I'm actually having, like, even though I'm not aware of it, my mind is having to stop myself from actually checking them because they're telling me to check them. Yeah, even though I'm not aware of it. So I'm using precious mental resources to not do something. So there is an argument for saying maybe that isn't what to do, but I don't know whether it is a bigger downside than making it more difficult later on in the process. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, does that make sense, Jaboj?
Yeah, it makes sense, and I think because I work in Studio One and I can copy the MIDI file and I can copy the synth or the preset into a complicated more project. So I think it's just getting used to the process. So maybe it makes sense to do a quick and easy splurge, and if I like it, I just copy all the tracks into my more serious template and just finish it inside there.
Yeah. I try and avoid serious templates, though. I prefer fun ones.
Oh.
No, I'm only putting it. So yeah. So no, but I know what you mean. No, that would work. That would work too. Luke, Arash, have you got anything to say on this?
On templates?
Yeah, on whether to it's okay to have a template and just say to yourself, I'm not going to use these parts, because then it's just easier to move the things along. Yep.
Again, it comes down, I think it's template can give you a starting place, and then you can always change the parameters to make a difference in your splurge. Or someone in the chat was saying, I just blanked on what I was saying.
It's okay.
But basically, it's totally fine. Oh, working on weaknesses. And is that something that we do in the leap, or that you talk about in the leap?
Oh, yes.
And I was saying, what I said was, you learn the process of making music, but you can always tweak the splurge to focus on whatever it is you want to work on, whatever you perceive your weakness might be. I think that's like stuff you can worry about down the line though. But anyway, to answer the question, I think it's great. Starting with a template's great, and you can always make your modifications to move things along.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Szabolcs, and I'm glad that I now know how to say your name. So it'd been great to actually talk to you after all this time, and it's been great. It's always great to see you on the live streams. So I'll see you again soon. Actually, there's a question here from Justin in the text question. How many splurges should I try to do every day during the 11-day challenge? Today on day 11, I just did one for 30 minutes. Want to at least do one a day, but my goal is to try to do more as I progress through the week. Luke, how would you answer this?
If you don't get 10,000 done, you probably
you might as well just give up, right?
Give it up. go do banking for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That is a sure sign that like music production is not for you. no. So, no. I mean, I think So one a day is great. If it is just one a day, do one a day. But
if you feel like doing another one, don't stop.
Yeah. I mean, I think the problematic word is should. Yeah. It's like there isn't a rule. One is if you are to actually do the challenge, then one, you have to do that, otherwise you haven't done the challenge, right? But in terms of how many you do, the more that you do, the more splurging you will do, so the better you'll get at it. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you should do more, but it might help you to want to do more, which would be a much better thing. How many do you want to do is maybe a question I would ask in return. More is better, but if you don't do more, that doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah, just don't get on like a guilt feedback loop where you don't do one and then you're like, oh, well, I should have done one, and then you feel bad, so the next day you don't do one. It's just like, do one, and if you can do like 8 that day because you feel great, do it. But yeah, the should can really
you're beating yourself over the head with the should. It's amazing. Go on.
Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld has this great talk or quote on creating, and something he says is, don't break the chain. So if you're writing, just write even one joke a day every day, but don't break the chain. So if you miss a day, get back on it and just do one joke, and just keep doing one joke at minimum. So his whole thing is like the least you can do continuously.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Great. We just need to answer this question because it's a really, really good one from Mihai. What's the most common first sign that you're not splurging anymore? That's such a good question. That bodes very well for your future in splurging, Mihai. That is the question to ask, and you've asked it, and that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that. So gold star to Mihai. So exactly. Woo! Yeah, high five. And Luke, what is the most common first sign that you're not splurging anymore? I think I might sit down. So if you see me descending, I'm not falling into a hole. I'm just using my table.
Well, it's funny that it should come from someone named Mihai, because I first think of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
That's right.
Hear that pronunciation?
Yeah.
And he has his book called Flow, and it's really just when you start to second guess heavily and start editing, and you're not necessarily moving forward, but you kind of are overcome with the editor. The editor starts making the decisions versus just making the decisions and continuing to move forward and getting out of that flow state. And it's something that the more you do it, it just becomes obvious. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. It's one of the things that the splurge is that it's a way of building your awareness. The splurge practice, yeah, is it's a way of building your awareness of what you are doing in any given moment, what you're doing like mentally, but what you're also actually doing. I mean, I'm sure we've all had that experience of kind of it's almost like waking up out in the middle of the music, and you'll be like, hang on a minute, I have been EQing this hi-hat for about half an hour. What on earth am I doing? Right? You kind of wake up and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, was that actually what was a good use of time? And you could kind of rationalize it and say, well, actually that, I really did need to be doing that at this point, but that is probably less true in more times than not. Yeah. So one of the things that we are doing in developing this ability to, I mean, that's what the zero focus on quality direction is. It's an awareness building direction. Yeah. Because if I say you're not allowed to focus on quality, what have you got to do? You've got to know when you're focusing on quality, which means you're building this third person observer figure, metaphorically. Yeah, this observer of what you are actually doing. How is that useful? I mean, like, how is that, Ardash, someone who's been doing it for a very long time? How has developing that third person observer been useful to you in just the whole of the creative process, not just the start, not just in the idea generation phase?
Yeah, it's I bring that in when it comes time to like make judgments on where I want the track to go. It serves absolutely no use when I'm splurging. I think I'm understanding you right here. Like the editor, in the sense, that's third person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, it's almost like the editor, the creator and the editor are. We're talking metaphorically here. No, they're not actually people in our heads, right? So we've got the creator and the editor, yeah. But then there's a knowing. There's an observer who is knowing, the difference.
Who is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not an observer; it's just an awareness of the difference. I don't know whether you remember in the How to Focus course, there's the
Mahout.
The Mahout, who is your conscious mind. That's the editor. There's the elephant, which is your unconscious mind. Yeah, and then there's the Maharaja, and that's the observer of the two. Yeah.
So yes. So that the Maharaja is critical in helping me know that, oh, I'm in editor mode, not creator mode. So maybe I should stop doing this hi-hat and get back to get back to splurging.
Yeah, exactly. Get back to splurging, or be doing something else, or because you can't create and edit at the same time. It's like putting the accelerator and the brake on. If you were to go into a car and do that, you'd be going around in circles, which is exactly what people do. Literally going around in circles in a loop. Yeah, it's because they're creating editing at the same time. So I think knowing building that awareness is absolutely key and is helpful throughout the process. How I know that I am that a splurge is over, that I am starting to edit too much, is when I don't know what to do next. Yeah. But it's not even not knowing what to do. It's almost like it's just this. It's hard for me to say because I've been doing it so long now that it's almost like I just know, but I'm just trying to kind of pull it out of the indications. So it's almost like I don't have any further things to say at this point. That's one. The other is that when I'm like, all I am doing is improving, moving, or removing what is already there. Yeah, improving, moving, or removing. Yeah. Now, when I say moving, that doesn't mean, for instance, creating a quick arrangement or something. That means changing an already existing arrangement. Basically, it's forwards. It's, as Luke said, it's yes, not but, yeah. So
yes,
as soon as
and, not no, but.
Yeah, exactly. So it's yes, and you're actually you're moving forward, not kind of going back over what you have done. So when those things start kind of building up, obviously you'll see when I'm doing the splurges, there is a little bit of editing that happens sometimes, but it's not, it's just in order to create the thing, yeah, rather than to edit the thing that had been created. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking, like, I was talking about how last weekend I had, like, there was essentially like 3 production stations in my house where there were like 2 to 3 people working in each room. And all I would do, I wasn't, it was like, they were almost like kind of like informally, there were 2 to 3 people in each room. And I would just spend about 5 minutes in each room and just go on this loop. And it's almost like when you're collaborating, there's a very like palpable intuition sense that the people in the room have moved from creating to editing. And you can kind of break out of that if it's almost like I would say, like, I can just sense it at this point. It's like, you just know that, like, the thing you're doing is not moving the idea forward. It's worrying if the idea is actually good. And I was just thinking, like, go ahead.
Sorry. No, please.
All I would do to like get over that is, like, when I would go into this room, there'd be 2 people, and like there was like one point where somebody was editing a synth sound, and I just came in and was like, oh, I have an idea. I didn't have an idea, and I just played something on the keyboard, and then they were like, oh, that's it, and then they just moved and like finished the track, and then I left, and then I came back and they had moved on to another idea, and it was like, it's almost just like when you start to do that, just add anything, and sometimes you'll fall flat on your face, but you have to be willing to jump and be willing to fall flat on your face and be willing to like write that accidental garbage that you think is garbage. And then later on, it's not garbage when you come back and listen to it.
Yeah, if anybody has a real problem with making mistakes, if there's a big fear or a big resistance to that, there's a good TED talk by Adam Grant called the Surprising Habits of Original Thinkers. I think that's the one. He also talks about procrastination, but this is like, he just very clearly proves that if you want to be great, that there is definitely an element of being okay with being crap. So, yeah. I mean, a huge element of it. You've got to be okay with stuff being rubbish. Okay, let's take a question. What I'm going to say with this call is I'm going to finish in 35 minutes. Okay, so if Arash or Luke, you need to leave before then, that's absolutely fine. I wasn't sure how long this call was going to be or what was going to happen, so I couldn't give a time. So yeah,
I'm gonna run and get water, and then I'll be right back.
And get rid of some mimosa.
Me on charcuterie, please.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be right back. Loving it.
Okay. Just Anyway, let's move on. So let's talk to Austin. If you could unmute yourself, Austin, that would be great.
Hello.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Jolly good.
So the question I had was, well, actually, I'd nearly forgotten, it was such a long time ago, but we were talking about collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously after speaking to you in February, one of the things that I realized I didn't really have was sort of any kind of a feedback loop. So I kind of searched around my contacts. I've got a few people who are now involved in that process. But one of the things that I used to do were download remix competitions, and I used to do this from a site called Metapop. I don't know if are you familiar with it? So
yes.
That's what I've started using as my feedback loop now. So I post the stuff that I've been creating to Metapop and then request feedback from that. It was just a tip if anybody else is suffering like I was in terms of feedback. So yeah, that's really what the question was.
No, so sorry. What was the question? Is that a good thing to do?
The question was, were you aware of Metapop and
no. So
useful tool. Yeah. Would it be a useful tool to include in your feedback loop? Is really what.
So when you get the feedback, so I'm familiar with the tool because a couple of my clients have been the people who are doing the remix competitions.
Yeah.
Who are putting them on. Yeah. So, but I'm not 100% familiar with. So could you just clarify where you're getting the feedback from and how it's being presented?
So basically, it has if you post a track there on Metapop and you want review feedback, you have to leave feedback on somebody else's track.
Yeah.
In order to post it.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to.
Well, no, but your network's a little bit larger than mine.
Yeah, no. So
if you understand what I'm saying.
What I mean is, I don't want to say anything bad about Metapop because I don't know enough about it, right? But let me just talk. So let me just talk more generally about online feedback, particularly feedback that you are leaving for a reason which isn't to do with the actual music. Does that make sense? So
it does.
In order to get feedback, you need.
I wouldn't be posting it on Facebook, for instance.
No. So let me just. So let me just answer the question, right? So in general, if there is a feedback kind of system where, for one thing, it's kind of online and it's faceless, you have no idea who is giving the feedback and you know nothing about them. And the real kind of insight about feedback is that feedback is as much, if not more, about the person giving it and the reasons they're giving it and the state they're in when they're giving it and who they're giving it to and how they feel and like whether they had what they had for breakfast and if they've slept well. And it's as much, if not more, to do with that as it is about the actual music. So that's the first thing to say. And obviously in an online environment where you don't actually know the person or anything about them, that can be very dangerous, just generally, whether it's Facebook, Metapop, or anything, SoundCloud. Added to that, a system where there is an incentive to give feedback to other people, that just muddies the waters even more.
Maybe that's the reason why I haven't got a lot of feedback from the track.
right. It's just a very, very like the very best kind of feedback that you can get is from a teacher who has no it's almost like they have no kind of conflict of interest in what they're feeding back on.
They're not swayed in any way at all.
It's just all they are concerned about is, are you getting better? That has to be. I mean, you've got to be a good teacher. So and not a bitter and twisted teacher who feels that they failed in life, things like that, of which there are a fair few. I mean, I come from a family of teachers, so I'm not in any way kind of demeaning.
I thought you were going to say you're used to that then.
No. So that's the very best kind of feedback. And then kind of coming down from there are lots of other kinds of feedback. But I think the very worst kind of feedback that you want to completely ignore pretty much, and it is the type where you're getting it from random strangers online in any situation. It's just utterly meaningless. I mean, often I say to people,
just for Metapop's purposes, not that I'm trying to push the brand or anything, but you can actually just be anonymous and leave feedback.
That's even worse.
You have to have an account on and obviously to have an account, you need to be really a musician because the whole point of you is to upload music. I mean,
but when I say anonymous, what anonymous means is it not actually faceless. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it might as well be anonymous, So I think, I mean, the question was, would you recommend getting feedback that way? And I personally, not because I'm anti-Metapop, not because or anything like that, just simply due to the psychology of it and what feedback actually means. I would avoid personally feedback like that.
So myself. Okay, so as another question that's arisen from that answer, then what's the best way for people that are like myself to go about then seeking feedback, trying to expand the network that is difficult to get into?
Well, I didn't come out of my mother's womb with a network, believe it or not.
No, I understand that.
but there is an assumption behind that, right? Because you said you have a network, but I didn't have that initially. So, I mean, where do you live and what do you? I mean, what do you do? What I mean, you don't really
Yorkshire, self-employed.
Right. So you're self-employed in Yorkshire. So I'm sure there's I mean, what kind of music do you make?
Electronica, house, techno.
Right. So I know for a fact that there is a big, scene around there. Now, obviously, in the current situation, it's much more difficult. Yeah, right. But
let's not even go there.
Yeah, exactly. But when things, and I'm not going to say get back to normal because that's not going to happen exactly. But when we are able to meet again, there are going to be plenty of things that you can actually go to.
No, indeed, yeah.
And I think that is essentially the best way of doing it. The other thing to do, and this is the approach I took, was to actually start thinking about, well, how can I, because you can go to other things, yeah. But the other thing is you can create your own thing that people want to come to. I mean, let me throw this open to Ardash and Luke. Anyone who's got anything to say about that? So what would you say about how to expand the network so you're actually getting feedback from real people who you can look into the whites of their eyes, you can smell them. So what would you say?
All right, you want to go first? You want me to go?
Go for it.
Well, I have a piano teacher, so that helps. I have this guy that I was in a mastermind with, Mike Monday, and I could send him. And then, I mean, just, it's, I feel like I met I have kind of like a network, not like, I guess I do have a network, but I mean, I would just go to like venues for shows I liked and eventually kind of just started meeting people. And that sucks to say, because like we can't really go to venues right now.
Well, again, that's the whole reason this question's arisen, because like I say, I'm stuck in on my own. I've been here for, what we're going on about 9 weeks. And it's kind of like, I don't have anybody who I can, I mean, I'm having to publish material online for people to hear it in the first place. And so that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah, but what were you doing before the 9 weeks?
Well, I'd speak to other people, indeed, who were involved in kind of the same thing that I was involved in.
Can you email those people and just be like, hey, what do you think of this?
But just to point out also as well, I am actually 50 years old, so and I need a new knee, and they won't give me a new knee until I'm 50, so I've got to wait till August for that.
So I'm 47 years old as well, but that isn't going to stop me from like expanding a network or creating a network in any new area that I want to go into. It's like,
indeed, I understand, and I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm just trying to get some advice.
No, absolutely, and that's what we're trying to do. But it's like we all have certain things that make things more difficult, for us, and than other people. That doesn't stop us from actually doing it though. So, I mean, I think the thing to do is to get in touch with the people who you already know, and get feedback from them. I mean, it's like create a feedback circle, So
maybe that's the thing that I'm afraid of. Then going to those people and saying, "Here, guys, do you like that?" Because it's a difficult thing for me to walk up to somebody and sort of say, "Oh, will you listen to this music and tell me if you like it?" I don't know. It's easier for me to do that online. Maybe that anonymous piece is the bit that I was seeking. Then, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So that's a great awareness there. So what I might recommend is, instead of saying, "What do you think of this?" is actually be more specific about what you're asking for feedback on, because that will be helpful to them. So
maybe,
so you send it to them and go, I'm not sure about this bit, what do you reckon? I'm like, the baseline here just isn't quite doing it for me, or whatever it might be.
There's lots of things that need done to it. I mean, most of it I can't afford to have mastered yet. I need to get some work into.
But you can send stuff to people unmastered.
That's basically what I'm posting. So it's not. But I'm posting it as unmastered, so it's not.
But I think trying to get feedback from faceless, and you're right, it is faceless, not necessarily anonymous, but faceless people online is something that I would avoid almost at all costs.
Well, I think
myself.
we've covered that one now, don't we?
You have people that are just kind of like their day was bad and they're just like,
Well, I don't need to anymore. I've got you guys, haven't
All right, Austin, brilliant. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful, and good luck with the knee. I hope that gets better. I hope you get that sorted soon. Yeah, of course. Yeah, please.
Sorry. So, Austin, a couple questions for you. The people that you've been in touch with, they're also producers that you wanted to ask for feedback from?
Yes. Some are, some aren't.
So how many producers do you know that are doing something similar to you?
Quite a lot.
So
there's a large collection of people around Yorkshire area that are doing electronic music, and I've kind of been involved in that scene. I haven't been involved in that scene because I've been trying to concentrate on getting music written rather than going out and dancing to it, and etc.
That's okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to point out that I think the thing that you are looking at is the same thing that a lot of people would want, which is feedback from a group of people that they can trust, that they respect, or that are also doing something similar to them. So if, to Mike's point of creating the thing versus trying to join something else, you could just put out an invitation and say, hey, look, I want to do this thing where maybe 3 or 4 of us can get together and share a song and we get collective feedback. I really like your work. And would this be something you're interested in?
Well, I've actually got 2 pieces of work, 2 pieces of collaboration work on with people at the moment, which I could kind of do that with, I guess.
Yeah. So now you're creating something that is valuable, not just for you, but for everyone else.
Yeah. And I had a guy reach out to me once, and he was just like, hey man, you're like, he basically was just like, you've gotten shows in this area, and kind of like flattered me. And like, by no means am I like wildly successful, but he was like, you're like, you've played here, here, and here. Like, that's great. Like, what do you think I should do to go to to take it to the next level with like this music and like where I'm at? And I mean, man, I spent like an hour, like just thinking of like everything this kid could do. And now like I collaborate with him. So like, if there's anybody in your circle or in your area that, you could be like, hey, like I've seen you played here. I really respect your music. Like, would you take a listen to this and just let me know? Like, I would love to at some point be able to make something like what you make. I mean, some people are, not the nicest people, but I think if you did that 10 times, like,
I know that if I get out of the house, once I get out of the house and back into that environment again, there are people that certainly I can speak to and approach and do indeed what you've just suggested.
Right.
It's just a bit tough to do that at the moment, unfortunately. But I mean, there are other ways of getting in touch with them. And I have tried a few people, but I haven't had a huge amount of response from that.
Yeah, but it's
mentioning
about,
no names, obviously.
Yeah, but I think lowering the expectation of response. So the more no's that you get, the closer you are to a yes. Think of it like that.
It doesn't not getting an answer doesn't bother me, Mike. At the end of the day, I've lived a life long enough to understand that I need to not worry about the things that I do. I'm doing them for my reasons, not for anybody else. If anybody else would like to enjoy them, then that's cool. But
good, excellent. All right, Austin. Well, hopefully that's been helpful.
It has indeed. Thank you, gents.
Cheers. All right, right. So we've got a question from Jace, who I know is in the leap, and I want to make sure. And so, Jace, could I be slightly rude and ask you to ask the question tomorrow on the call, because I want to make sure that I get to as many people who aren't leapers as possible. And I'm not sure we're going to get to all the questions. We might though, but let's see if we can. Let's see if we can up the rate of answering. So Matt, are you there?
I am.
There we go.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks. So my question about splurging. So I started a few days ago. I really enjoyed the process. So this is not me pushing back against it or resisting it, but I have a question when it comes to incorporating different workflows into the splurging process. So a little background, I've been dabbling with DAWs for 10, 15 years. So I know my way around inside the box very well. Over the past 3-4 years, I've started exploring more with hardware gear, which I tremendously enjoy, but I find now that I'm approaching the concept of splurging, it's driven me back inside the box because it's familiar, right? Like I can just multiply tracks or do things very quickly in there to not burden myself with thinking or try to follow your instructions as closely as possible. On the other hand, there's other things I want to do, like maybe start off with developing a sound on a modular synthesizer, for example, where the work will be very different, build a track around that. So I'd like to hear from you guys what you think about, like, is that something I should do outside of splurging, or is that something I would design a splurge specifically for that process and come up with parameters that work with that? Or like, how do you reconcile the two things? Or maybe like incorporating processes that may not be as quick as I can work inside the box. Does that make sense?
So there's a guy in the Leap who has actually started using his modular, because we start the Leap with splurging, obviously, because you have to, because it's start the automatic music machine, and so he's started using his modular for the first time, this time through the Leap, and he asked this exact same question in one of the first calls, and I said, all right, outside of splurging, instead of creating the template, patch something, with the modular, so you've got it patched in a certain way, so that's not splurging, that's similar to creating the template, and then when you have that patched in like that, splurge using that routing, or whatever you want to call it, that patch, splurge on that multiple times. That
makes sense. I didn't even thought of that. Okay, so that could apply to other gear as well, I suppose. So instead of making templates inside the DAW, I can just set up some beats on the drum machine or like a patch and stuff, and then when that's ready, you start splurging. All right, that's cool.
It's there's no difference really. It's the same. It's the same concept. It's an overarching concept for life in general. I realized quite late on in my life, actually, because I'm a bit of a slow learner, but I realized quite late on in my life that I was constantly putting myself into situations where I was swimming against the current, and I was trying to move forward by swimming against the current. I was like, hang on a minute. So what I actually just need to do is turn around and swim with the current, and I'll go a lot further. So that was the first step. But then the next step was, hang on a minute, what happens if the current's going in the wrong direction? I was like, what I need to do is I need to find another river. In other words, I need to create and I'm taking this analogy way too far here, but I need to basically create another condition where I am swimming with the current. So it's almost like I'm creating a situation where it happens, and part of the kind of template creation is in kind of defining the parameters into which you are splurging. The same is true of modular hardware or whatever you're talking about. The same is true of generic constraints. The same is true of sound constraints, of form constraints, of the kinds of parts used. It's like all of these things are essentially conditions that you can create before you splurge, which allow you just to jump off and be free.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. So, like, Luke, do you have anything to add about that?
That's about coming back to tracks after the splurge. What was the original question?
No. So it was like with hardware or different workflows with if you've got modular or something like that, how do you splurge? Because I think the kind of issue, if you like, or not really the issue, maybe the mental obstacle was that Matt was conflating the patching in of the modular with splurging. Whereas I was creating this clear distinction between creating the conditions, i.e. setting the template or patching in the modular, and then splurging on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I have some hardware sense. But I guess if what's your hardware, Matt?
I have a few. The one I use as an example is just a Eurorack modular, which in my mind I would have to update my splurging parameters to include the patching. But what Mike said makes a lot more sense, which is to just set it up first, and then you're not splurging while you do that. You just while you're patching, you're setting up the template basically.
Oh, and just on that note, Matt, you can actually do the patching in a splurgy way.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. So that might be, you know, as you could create the template in a splurgy way. Oh, I'm just gonna do this, we do that, you know, see what happens. Yep. And,
Well, that's how
yeah.
I work the modular anyway, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with that. It's just plug patches, you know, patch cables here and there and hope for the best.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, one of the things I found with, because this is the stuff I've got here is semi-modular. So these are both semi-modular, and this is kind of semi-modular because it's got holes as well.
Yeah.
And what I found, the mistake that I've made with it is that I've ended up trying not doing it in a splurgy way and just like getting into this, oh, I'm going to try and create this specific thing. And then like 5 hours later, I'm still just going around the same, you know, like in some kind of zombie, like, you know, and nothing's come of it. You know, I'm just kind of sick of it. It's the same thing. So what I would suggest doing is keeping that plugging in bit, almost like setting a time limit on it, or doing it in a splurgy way, but definitely separating the plugging in bit from the creation of the actual thing.
Makes sense. I think you just allowed me to use my modular in splurges now. Thank you.
Yay! Results. All right, let's move on quickly. So, Adam.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, so my question is, okay, just so very briefly, my background is I've been producing for a really long time, and yeah, since about 5 years ago, I now have a young family, 2 young kids, and I'm a freelance software developer as well. And so my time's really limited. And I've, thanks to you, Mike, I've kind of been getting back into making music again, but with limited time. And it's been a bit of a challenge. And I think the thing that I don't quite believe yet, because I used to spend so much time on music, it was like, you know, every night I'd be working in the studio, basically. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't quite believe that with the limited time that I currently have, which is, I've worked out I can safely commit to half an hour a day, max. That includes setup time sometimes. So I'm just, yeah, I guess I'm looking for some reassurance that it's still possible to gain some momentum. And, you know, I mean, I can do quick splurges, that's cool, but I'm not at the stage of like, I can't quite see how I'm going to finish tracks. And I think that's a lot to do with my past experience. Right. Of spending a lot of time on tracks, and also trying to almost finishing almost every idea I've started, like telling myself I need to finish that idea.
How long?
Yeah, go on.
How long do you think it typically took you to finish a track in the past?
Oh man, I'd spend a long time on tracks, like, you know, okay, like occasionally, and actually funny enough, they were some of my best tracks. They just came out in a day or two.
Interesting.
But typically, yeah, exactly. Typically like weeks, sometimes months on the track.
How much actual time on the track though, you think?
Oh, I wouldn't like to measure it.
So like 20 hours?
Literally.
I think it would be a good exercise to measure it, because I think looking clearly, like the first step to change is honesty, transparency, truth, right? So what is the answer to that question?
I mean, some tracks it would literally be probably like, I can think of at least 1 or 2 tracks that maybe spent like, could be up to like 50, between 50 and 100 hours.
Mm-hmm. So if you had 15 minutes a day, eventually you would get to 50 hours.
True.
There you go.
Yes.
But like what I'm getting, you know, from listening to you guys, and also looking back at my past experience and knowing this, is that, you know, the amount of time spent, you know, EQing a hi-hat or something, or like fiddling with an arrangement, you know, there's a lot of time that can be stripped away. by just going, okay, that's good enough, move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's good enough. It's not just that's good enough. That's good enough for right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Because the trouble, because just let me finish this thought. So the mistake, particularly as solo producers, that it's slightly different for when you're working in a room in a collaboration with someone else, right? Particularly for solo producers or solo composers, solo musicians, is to think that you need to get it right at that point, so that you can move on. Like the way that your judgment works, that is not the optimal way to move forward. The optimal way to move forward is to say, I know the thing that I need to do. So for instance, when in EQing a hi-hat, this hi-hat needs to be brighter. So I'm going to make it brighter. Have I made it brighter? Yes. Move on. Not, is that perfect, the exact thing that needs, because you can't make that judgment in the creation of the music, in the actual doing of the thing. So essentially it's like, it's good enough for now, I can move on, because you can always come back to it later, and improve it. What were you gonna say, Luke? Sorry.
Oh, I mean, for me, like let's just say you had 15 minutes a day to go back to tracks. Like, for the longest time, like I would, go to work on a track and it would be like, okay, I know that there's like 100 actions, and it would just almost be like exhausting, because I knew I like had to, okay, like during this session, I'm going to have to just work on all these. But what I would do is as I started kind of, looping through old ideas, it would be like, in this session, I'm just going to do one thing. And that one thing may be adding the drum fill after the first breakdown. And then you really put all your energy into that one thing, and then you move on to the next track, and you're like, oh, okay, I need to add a melody during the drop or whatever. And you end up being almost more attentive to detail, because it's like your brain is just, it knows that it doesn't have to solve all of the problems right now. And it can just very much like focus in on the thing that you're planning to do on that session.
Let me show you.
One thing I want to feed back on as well is I'm on the weekly missions as well, and the last week's mission was about the editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really helpful for me, just clarifying that process, which is similar to stuff I have done in the past, especially when I was used to collaborate with a friend. He was really into making lists of things to do on the track, but it's really refreshing to come back to that in a very clear, separating the processes way of like just listening to the audio file and making that list, and not having to, and then when you come to the session, not having to do everything on that list. It's really, really helpful.
That's it.
I think the thing that I'd like to ask is, you guys, is are there people you've worked with who have similar time constraints, and how, and have actually finished albums or whatever?
Me is one of them. So I have 4 children, under 10, and I don't want this to be a let's have a kind of some kind of face off as to who's got the least time, or anything like that, because that's not what this is. But just to give you some kind of context. So I have 4 children. I'm building this coaching business. I've got multiple clients. I mean, I have, I don't know, anything from half an hour a day. Sometimes I don't have any time to make music. I've just got time for a splurge. Sometimes I just say to myself, I'm just going to put everything else to one side, and I'm going to spend a couple of hours today. But I mean, there's me. Another example is that I can talk about. There's lots of other people who I can't talk about, but for instance, Claude Von Stroke. I don't know whether you saw the case study interview that I did with him recently, but before the pandemic, in that different world where there were actually live events, he was traveling all over the world every single weekend, had a team of like 20 people who he was having to manage, radio show, multiple press things he had to do, remixes, 2 kids. I mean, I I don't know what your life is like, Adam. I don't know what anybody's life is like, but I know what Claude Von Stroke's life was like, and I can fairly confidently say that I've never met anybody who has less time than him. And he got an album out and multiple remixes with other people, and a huge track with Green Velvet called Jolene, and he released the album, and now he's got another 6 months worth of releases with that little amount of time. With something like the automatic music machine, you are essentially as you rightly said, there are lots of areas where you can actually remove time from the process. One of them being not finishing the things that aren't worth finishing.
Yeah.
Right, but that just cuts out what, 80%?
I was quite like, I saw, I think it was a bit of your live stream yesterday where you showed, and you did it earlier in this session, showing this Trello board with like hundreds of ideas. And I was just like, that's really, it's such a different way from how I have been working on music in the past.
Same here, like different way to what I was working on music in my previous career for 17 years. I was in the pummeling into submission, I will finish this track and I'm not going to start the next until I finish this one. Way. And that was all I knew. And I mean, Start Now, Finish Fast, the first course I did was about that, but that's because all I knew. But now we're working on multiple tracks and they're gradually getting filtered out. But essentially, if you think about it, right, and this is something I just wanted to sort of clarify for you in the context of a system. Hang on a minute, where are we? Share screen. 5,000 screens. Hang on, right. So there we go. In the context of a system, you're starting loads of music, here, and then some of it is making it into here, Now, usually, I'm in a very particular state, but usually these columns would have music in it as well, So if I'm starting loads of music and I'm doing like, I don't know, half an hour, 15-minute sessions on each of those, as long as the machine is full, then it's going to be constantly filling up this end and constantly be delivering on this end. Does that make sense? Even on short sessions. And even though, like, for instance, this track was started in, I don't know, October 2019, because there's been other stuff coming through, the quantity is still coming out. Does that make sense? It's like, it feels like the time is extended, but as long as you've got loads of music coming out, it doesn't matter. And it's kind of it's weird how our conscious mind can't kind of think of that. That's why people often say with the automatic music machine, it's like, I feel like I'm not doing very much, but there's loads of music coming out. I don't know have you had that experience, Ardash?
Absolutely.
It's like I'm not being very productive, but I'm like, and then you would come on the mastermind. I feel like I'm not being very productive because I've only finished like 4 songs this week.
I'm curious if you guys have this experience. Like, it's like there's you have all those tracks and you won't listen to one for like 5 days. And I go to click on it. And before I even listen, I swear, it's like I open a mailbox and there's just an idea for the track. And it's like, because I haven't listened to it. And I just go and I do the idea and then I upload the track, and it might be 15 minutes or an hour that it took me to carry out the idea. And then I put it to the side, don't come back to it for like a week. And then I come back and there's just another idea. It's so ridiculous.
It's Chris.
Does that happen to you guys?
Yeah. It's almost automatic.
Yeah.
I think just to set your mind at rest, Adam, you have enough time, and I understand why you feel like you do, and you've got, it's great that you've got the awareness to say to yourself, this is probably just coming from experience. I mean, experience can be a great teacher, but experience tends to be a terrible coach.
Right.
Mike said something to me a few weeks ago. And he was just like, whatever you decide to do, it's going to work. It just might, take some time. So it's going to work. Just keep doing it.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right. What I'm going to do, I did say I would stop at 7, but I feel terrible because I've got 2 people left. I'm just going to get to those last 2 questions, Eric and Francois, and then we're going to call it a day. So again, I just want to be respectful of Ardash's and Luke's time, who've very, very kindly given up some of their Saturday. So feel free to leave if you need to again. So Eric. Oh, Eric. There we go.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. How you doing?
What's up, Mike?
I'm
Good
good. How
morning.
are you?
Hey,
Good
nice
morning.
to meet you, Ardash and Luke. Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hey, I didn't see this little Q&A feature until after I raised my hand. So the question is there in the Q&A. If you would need me to get off the phone and just read it from there.
No. It's all right. You asked the question. It's probably better that way. I prefer it that way.
No, that's cool. All right. As you can see, this might be a little bit more, since I've been splurging since 2018, this might be a little bit in the leap territory question. But I'm looking at, I guess it's more building the kind of an audience engagement question where I'm trying to see if I should put splurges as, this is just like content audience engagement type of I guess feedback I'm wanting from you guys, is if I was to post, like, for example, an Instagram story, a splurge that I did that day, just kind of just show the screen as a story and put the little question, you know, a fire emoji saying, hey, should I go on? What do you guys think? Should I carry on? Yes, no, or fire, or thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then I won't listen to the song, and I probably won't even, I'll probably look at the feedback, maybe probably put a note in the Trello description or something like that, to see whether or not I should go forward. I mean, just to have a little bit of an audience input, not really, I don't know if it'll corrupt my thought of it or, you know, corrupt my thought of the splurge. Because on a live stream a few weeks ago, Mike, you had mentioned like that it was you don't ever listen to splurges live, or that you don't recommend listening to splurges with anybody else because it can taint your impression of the splurge. What are your thoughts on all this? It's just for content, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great that, like, in general, it's great that the thing about live streaming that really is the difference between live streaming and anything else is the interaction. That's where the center of the bullseye. It's a community building thing, but it's also it's a kind of an interactive thing, which no other form of content, so to speak, like has that. I mean, not even a live gig in the same way. And you know, I'm not saying live streaming is better than live gig. It's just totally different. It's its own thing. So I really I think it's a great idea in that sense. In terms of your creative process, the bit that rang a alarm bell for me, Eric, was when you said I would listen to the audience for whether I should continue with it. Now, that is possibly suggesting to me that you might not be able to divorce what they think or what anyone thinks from what you want to do. Yeah. If you kind of had a, like, if you could do that and almost like ignore the feedback to a certain extent, the feedback that you disagreed with, if you had the ability to do that, ignore I mean, I don't think you truly can as a human being, but ignore the feedback that you disagreed with and go with the feedback that you kind of thought, oh, that's a really good idea, or that's a good point, then that might be a good idea. But what I would recommend that you do is that you don't do that with all of your music. It's almost like, I mean, so the way I'm treating my live stream splurges is that they're almost like a different thing. Yeah, it's not that I'm not going to use them or I'm not going to take them forward, but I am splurging outside of the live stream because I know the act of doing it in a live stream, apart from anything else, it means I remember them much more, you know, when I come back to them. But it's a different different things. So if you like, I think it's a good idea, but it is going to, I'm not sure it's going to corrupt the creative process, but it is going to change your creative process. And if you're not like a kind of certified splurgeologist, as both Luke and Ardash are, I would be careful about doing that, because I don't know enough, to be honest, Eric, about where you're at. You know, and I mean, even with the mastermind members who I'm meeting with every week, there are certain people who I'd say, yeah, go for it. Like there's a guy actually, Tony, who is actually in the chat. I don't know if he's still watching now, but he's been in the master. Yeah, so he's been a mastermind for a while, and he splurges live as well, so I would say, so for instance, I think would be able to do it, and I could be confident that he'd be able to do that, and it would be a good thing to do. But I'm not sure, because I don't know where you're at psychologically and in your process. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty. I got a pretty good foundation on the things that I like, and if anything, I feel it's kind of deceptive, because I know what I like, and if the audience really likes something, I might consider it. But I mean deceptive as in like it's really more for the audience engagement. You know?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
That would work. I mean, I think the key to being an artist is totally ignoring feedback from your fans while also totally listening to your fans. It's another of those paradoxes. Yeah, you got to know what they want, but at the same time do your own thing. I mean, Ardash, what do you think about this? I mean, you've been doing a lot in your own coaching business. You've been doing a lot around live streaming, so I don't want to be the expert around this. We're all working this out, right? So what do you think about this as an idea? And
yeah, I agree with what you were saying before, Mike. It's a great way. It's definitely a great way to generate engagement on Instagram. I have a homie who puts up on his stories, like he'll make a beat and then he'll play it. What he doesn't do is ask for feedback, and that he just has his path, like he's doing what he's doing and he's sharing his process in that way. The idea of asking people if I should go with it, like maybe that might not be the best question, or you could ask that once in a while, but maybe it's like, what do you think? Or like,
I think,
but it is, but it's what Mike was saying. You have to, depending on where you are in your splurge process, it's just being very mindful of like not letting that influence your process in a detrimental way.
I always think that, like, I do have a following, and it's kind of like when we listen to our favorite artists' beat tracks, we're like always like it. We always like it, So I kind of have I kind of think they're gonna like anything I put up there just because it's something different than what they're doing, So that's kind of why I feel like I'm not really. I hate to say it sounds so egotistical, but I might not put much value into what they like, because I am, after all, the artist, and I would like anything that, say, my favorite artist would put out. I think I would be just a fangirl about it then too, just like everything. So I almost think they're not gonna badmouth me. I mean, they might, but I think they're gonna like anything I put out there, maybe. And so it's more just about audience engagement. I don't know.
It's less about putting it out as seeing if it's something that they'll like, and more about just the engagement process, right? Which is what live streaming is all about, which is what posting on stories is all about. It's social media is all about the back and forth.
The crash and burning. Put the crash and burn in, like, for them to show the process,
Yeah, exactly.
I almost feel like it's more like just inviting them to like hang out, and you just happen to be producing or splurging or whatever. You can kind of explain it, but just almost like they're in the room and you're just kind of like, what's up? This is what I'm doing right now. Come join me.
I mean, for me, the live streaming that I've been doing, I was saying this to Luke, I think, day before yesterday. I have never been in a situation where I've been creating content like doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing for the good of the business, yeah, which is basically creating valuable content for people to watch and kind of find me and kind of, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's always been a struggle to create. Always, it's always been hard to do. Yeah, it's always been like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to make this video. I've got to write this email. Yeah. With live streaming, it's actually addictive. It's like I'm having to stop myself from doing it. That's how much I like it. So there is, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just because I'm like an incurable show off or something. But it's just this. I just like love being the center of attention. I'm sure that's what my wife would say. But it's just I can't. It's almost like I can't stop, and I have to go right. I need to stop doing this. I've got to do something else because otherwise, I just spend all my time doing it. So it's kind of weird to be in this kind of position now. Anyway, cool. So final question. Let's do the final question with Francois. Cheers, Eric.
Hey guys.
Hello. Hi.
Hey
how you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for waiting for me. I have a little question towards getting splurges to the next level into the discovery. I've done the 11-day challenge in April. And follow the live streams and everything. So I end up having a lot of tracks, a lot of splurges that I want to put in the discovery. But the thing is that I choose half of them. I think sometimes it can, I just get overwhelmed with it right now because I feel like I need to push a lot of these ideas. And there's few places where I'm asking myself if I can help myself a little bit. Let's say by maybe not putting half of these splurges in discovery first. And yeah, maybe let's just ask you this for now.
Yeah, so the question is that you're getting overwhelmed by
the quantity of tracks of let's say splurges that are now in the discovery section. And you know, I used to release, let's say, just one track a year because I was really oriented on details and stopping myself in all ways. And I've been developing I know a lot of bad habits, and I know there's also fear of judgments by the others for sure that are coming toward that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to do as much as possible, but I'm really trying to have my eyes, I know, on the process like you suggest, but I do this for releasing tracks, you know, so I'm getting a little bit stuck with the quantity of tracks I need to work at the same time, which is a good thing at the same time, but.
So Luke, what would you say to Francois?
Probably just limit the number of tracks that you haven't discovered.
Yep.
And honestly, you know, I've kind of got like I don't know, you know, after you do it a bunch, you just kind of start to kind of figure out what works well for you based on your time. So I would say, you know, maybe try like 3 and be cycling through those. And if that works well, great. And then maybe take a week where you try 4, and then maybe take a week where you try 8. And you'll just kind of, you know, you'll hit a momentum in a sweet spot, or I think you will. That's what happened to me is like, when I first started, I would have like 4, and then I'm kind of finding like, if it's like around the 8 range, I'm really, Mike has a way of picking the number based on the number of hours you have. But I think honestly, like I would just say like, limit it for the week, go for the week, have like a listening session at the end of the week, and then, you know, experiment. Don't be afraid to, you know, compare how your previous week went when you did 3 versus your next week where you had 8. And I mean, I think, I mean, how does that sound to you guys, Mike and Arash and Francois?
Yeah, great. So Arash, what would you say?
We've had this discussion before, Mike, in the mastermind, where there was a point where my machine was blocked because I had like 8 tracks in Discover, 8 tracks in Draft. And I was like, so much to do. I don't know what to do. Mike was like, cut it down to like 3. So in relation to jump off what Luke was talking about, limiting will be your best bet right now, just to like unblock the system, get things going again, and then you'll find what your sweet spot is. And yeah, like try different things.
So maybe choosing the, oh, sorry, go Mike.
Yeah, no. Ask that. Sounds like
so maybe just going with the tracks that I feel the most happy about it, and maybe putting the others in the sketchbook.
Yes.
Okay.
So they can always move from the sketchbook back to Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The sketchbook is not a bin. The sketchbook is not a bin.
All right.
Just like that on the side. Yeah, it's the gold mine. Yeah. So the thing is about life, as you may have noticed, is that it's chaos. Yeah.
Yep.
It's chaotic. Yeah. And sometimes you have more time, and sometimes you have less time. Sometimes you have more focus, sometimes you have less focus. Yeah. And the key to success, I think, is in not trying to make that idealized version of life happen. Is that how do we work through chaos? And I think so if at the start of the week you say, well, this is going to be, it looks like it's going to be a week where I have more time, then that means you have more time to do more sessions. So you go to your sketchbook and you put something additional into Discover, Draft, whatever. Yeah. And when you have less time, then you take some stuff out. And I mean, really the sweet spot, I can describe the sweet spot for you, is that you've got enough in there that you're cycling through enough so that you kind of have enough distance from each of them. Yeah. So that there's enough of that, enough, but there's not so many that you get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because the thing is, if things stay in there for a long time without you working on them, that starts to create a mental barrier. You start to get this procrastination feeling, yeah? Because you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So you want to be working on them. I would say cycling through at least once a week, if not twice a week. Yeah, you want to be doing maybe a couple of sessions a week. For me, anyway, tends to be around the sweet spot of what. Yeah, and basically just adjust according to that.
All right. Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot. Maybe I can ask you a tiny question on the how to listen to this session, and after I'll be done and let you have your lives.
Yeah. Okay. Then. No worries. So let me again pass it to the other experts. Arash, how would you listen to the? I mean, you talk about the discovery and the draft tracks, right?
Yeah, but because I mean, when I work on different splurges, or let's say I do my second or third session of discovery, and after I have these tracks that are ripe to listen. Let's say I have 5 tracks that are now ready because I've been waiting the 2 days or the 7 days. Let's say I try to, let's say if I'm listening to the tracks that are in discovery, I often like listen to these 4 or 5 tracks that are ready, and I make all the notes back to back. So I'm kind of really doing a listening session where I let the editor be there. So I'm wondering, is it better to do this or just be the editor for one track that I listen, and after do the session right away to be in to use those creative ideas right away? Or should I just, so I'm a little bit wondering between the.
So just to clarify, you're not the editor when you are listening. I mean, the editor will appear when you're listening. When you're listening, you're listening.
Yeah. Okay.
So if anything, you're the third person, the Maharaja. I need to actually come up with a name that fits with the creator and the editor. I'll come up with that for next time. So yeah. So we've got the creator and the editor, yeah, and then we've got the person who sees the creator and the editor. While you're actually listening, you're just listening, and yes, editing thoughts will come in, yeah, and then you become the editor after the listening in order to decide, what to do. I mean, what do you have on this, Ardash? How do you listen to your music that's in progress? Yeah,
it's all a feeling for me. So I'll listen. As I'm listening, I'm just checking in and saying, okay, how do I feel about this? Do I like it? Do I not like it? If something doesn't resonate with me, I figure out, okay, what is it about this that's not resonating? Oh, the melody could be improve. That sounds very vague, but like I want a different melody. I think the chord progression should change, or I think it needs a fill here and it needs a lift in the hook, for example.
Yeah.
So I start analyzing what it is that's not sitting right for me, and then make notes.
Yeah, because often people stop at the "this isn't working." Oh no, and then that's it, and it's like that has zero value. Yeah, so you listen, and you go. The editor comes and goes, "That's not working," but you keep listening. Yeah, and then when the track's finished, you go, "Okay, so that wasn't working. What wasn't working about it? What are some potential solutions? What am I going to try?" And that's
so you're not really listening to the track while you're making your notes. You do it after.
No, not at all. No.
Okay. That's the difference. Okay. Yeah. And can I do this for several tracks back to back? Let's say that.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can do, like I go back and forth about this. It depends on really my time and how what I do. Sometimes I will do it just before the session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes I will do it, I don't know, when I'm walking the dog.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
To that point, it's actually really nice to, and you said this, Mike, also to us, I'm assuming you said to Luke as well. It's great to take your tracks outside of the studio and listen to them, because it gives you a different sensation and you hear things differently in different environments.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah,
advice. Yeah, sorry, Luke.
I have so many times I go to try to like something I haven't worked on in a few days. I'll listen to the recording. And it's just like, I don't know, like midway through, I plan to listen to 5 recordings, and I'm just like, I know what needs to get done. I know that thing. And I just I don't know. It's, you just go. And like the proper way, but sometimes that just happens. And I don't, and sometimes when that happens, I do the thing, export it, go to the next one. And then the idea is ready. And I'm just like, and that's how the flow starts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you feel that burn to just make a change while you're listening, just, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think just, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, there's a, it's not even a balance. It's a needle to be threaded here, because you can kid yourself that that's what is happening, when actually what's happening is that you can't be bothered to make the list. Yeah. So we can rationalize all kinds of things. So I do agree with you, and I do that too as well. But I do that knowing that that it would actually be a benefit me to do the other thing as well, because I don't think there's any, if it's a good idea and you have to, there's this thought that's out there, and it's almost like a meme that is believed. It's like that you have to strike while the iron's hot, otherwise that you're stuffed, that the idea is gone and the inspiration is gone and you will never get it back. And I'm here to say to the whole world, that's a load of codswallop. That's not how it works. And I think, having said that, though, also on the other side of it is that when the inspiration does strike, it would be ridiculous for me to sit here and go, "No, you must make a list," because that just doesn't make sense. Sometimes you've got to go with it. So it's one of those nuanced things where it's a situational thing. As long as you bear in mind that the human mind is, particularly our conscious, our editor is a wily, character, and he will whisper things in our ears saying, you don't need to do this, and you'll just, and actually you're just trying to avoid doing something that's hard, or that's tricky. So that's the only thing I would say. But yeah, I mean, in general, you're as long as you're aware enough to know the difference, then I think that's fine.
And I think I do that more with Discover than I do with Draft. If I get the idea, I know that there's a thing, and I can't necessarily name what I'm going to do, but I'm like, okay, so I'm going to take this track and make it this. I did this the other day where I basically, I had a melody and I listened to it and I was like, I think this would be better if it were an entirely different genre. And I just recreated the whole thing real quick in a splurge and then exported it. And I wouldn't do that on a draft session. That's when I'm making the list. But with the Discover, where like I couldn't have written, it's like it would have been difficult to make a list for recreate the entire track in this style, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could, because you go, well, what would the things I would have to do? Because at some point you're making a list.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense. I mean, not actually writing it down in a list, but you have to because you're doing the things. I mean, that is a list.
Right.
So you could. I'm not saying that would be the right thing to do in that situation, but you could. And I think what it is, what the list is it's a way of avoiding rabbit hole. I mean, really, it's a way of having a roadmap which you don't need to slavishly follow, but which gives you a way out of those sort of, yeah. I mean, I have found that when I don't make lists, there's a much higher percentage of me falling into just kind of rabbit holes and kind of not coming out. Great. So thank you, Francois.
Thanks, guys.
No worries at all. We went on longer. So thank you so much, Arash and Luke, for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else does on the line too. It's been great. I've really, really enjoyed it. And it's been cool to see it. It's kind of a different thing, isn't it, when you're doing it on YouTube as well? Because I've got the YouTube page up as well. It kind of feels, I don't know, it feels more open, because it is, I guess. So thank you for doing that. It's been absolutely great. I'm doing another one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 3 or 4 days from now. It's in the schedule anyway. Another one of these. I don't know whether Ardash and Luke will make it for that. It's totally up to them, you know, because this is optional for them. But basically, I will definitely be here. So come along for that. And yeah, happy splurging. Did you want to add anything else, Luke or Ardash?
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for being here. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right, folks. Well, stay safe, stay healthy,
stay sanitized,
and onwards and upwards.
Bye, guys.